For the past 4 decades, Nicolas Cage has been one of the most prolific and entertaining actors in show business. And this weekend, he'll bring his singular style to the exciting action comedy The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which features the actor as, well, Nick Cage, an accomplished blockbuster action star who's ready to retire. However, once he's hired to attend the birthday party of a wealthy superfan named Hobby, he gets something of a second wind, and is then recruited by a CIA operative Vivian to channel some of his most iconic fictional characters for a dangerous government mission. The film marks a culmination of so many memorable moments from Cage's prodigious screen career, from his sprawling adventure stories to searing action dramas.
Is this supposed to be me? It's grotesque. I'll give you $20,000 for it.
So to celebrate this marvelously meta role, here's a look back at Nicolas Cage's best action movies of all time, ranked. Just before the MCU emerged as a mainstay of the movie industry, Cage became one of Marvel's most fiery superheroes of all time, the title character of 2007's Ghost Rider. Cage stars as Johnny Blaze, a reckless stuntman who's forced to become the enforcer of the demon Mephistopheles.
You.
Hello, Johnny.
Stay away from me.
Johnny has no choice but to do the devil's bidding because, as a teenager, he sold his soul to save his father. With Johnny Blaze, Cage's performance manages to make the character both ruthless and redeemable, haughty and heartfelt, and condemned but not contemptible. It's a bold balancing act that's perfectly matched by the visually arresting action scenes.
Let's ride.
There's something so satisfying about seeing Cage bring his skills to the screen for films that have a bit of a supernatural bent, and Drive Angry is another prime example of that. Cage stars in this 2011 3D film as John Milton, a man who escapes from hell armed with nothing less than Satan's own gun. Milton is on a mission to get revenge against a cult leader named Jonah King, a devil worshiper who's murdered Milton's daughter and stolen his baby granddaughter in order to sacrifice the child and bring about hell on Earth. It's clear throughout the flick that Cage has a lot of fun portraying this unholy, semi-human character who has absolutely nothing left to lose, not even his own soul, which makes for some hellishly good action and stylish fight sequences with an otherworldly flair. Better buckle up for this high-speed film ride. When it comes to Cage's sci-fi surprises, 2009's Knowing is a must-see. In the film, he portrays John Kessler, a grieving widower and celebrated astrophysics professor who gets his hands on a bizarre list of dates and coordinates that relate to major catastrophes throughout recent history.
9/11/01.
But he soon discovers that the numbers don't only relate to past calamities, they predict future ones. He finds himself right in the thick of the chaos and begins to suspect that the numbers point to some dark moments for mankind in the near future. As John scrambles to protect his child from the voices that are creeping into his own head and the impending disaster, Cage delivers a searing performance as a parent who has to grapple with the impossible before it's too late.
How am I supposed to stop the end of the world?
John Woo's 2002 war film Windtalkers centers on the Navajo code talkers who helped lead the troops to victory in World War II's Pacific Theater by using a code that was indecipherable to enemy forces. In the film, Cage delivers a riveting performance as Sergeant Joe Enders, who's assigned to the crucial undercover mission of protecting a code talker, Private Ben Yazzie, from being captured at all costs. When he and his fellow Marines find themselves in an ambush, Enders has to decide whether to follow direct orders or forge his own path forward through the skirmish. As Enders, Cage brings both valor and vulnerability to the role, and what results is a poignant picture about a critical part to the Allied success in the war. Some of Cage's best roles are those that allow him to show who he is rather than spelling out the nuances of the character through dialogue. In 2013's Joe, he plays something of an anti-hero with a mysterious checkered past. Although Joe prefers to keep his own company, he takes a shine to a young man who stumbles onto his work site looking for a job. The boy, Gary, is hardworking but troubled, and soon Joe finds out why. The kid's father is an abusive alcoholic. Though Joe is initially inclined to stay out of it, as the details of Gary's home life come into view, he has no choice but to act, putting his own peace and security at risk.
If I find out something's happened to that boy, I'm gonna whip whoever's ass had something to do with it.
Put simply, Joe isn't your average Joe, nor your prototypical heroic figure, and Cage's understated performance perfectly captures the character in this thoughtful action drama. In the 1993 neo-noir thriller Red Rock West, Cage plays Michael Williams, a combat veteran who stumbles into the wrong place at the wrong time. When he heads to the town of Red Rock, Wyoming in search of work, he gets way more than he bargained for when he's mistaken for a hitman. But when the actual hitman, portrayed by Dennis Hopper, arrives, the real chaos begins. So Michael finds himself in the middle of a deadly domestic dispute, with a hitman and a powerful, rage-filled sheriff on his tail. This stylish little thriller has a bit of everything: high-speed chases, clever jailbreaks, and some very surprising twists, and Cage is as charismatic as ever in the role. If you want to see a film that allows Cage to channel every inch of his ability to become unhinged on screen, look no further than Werner Herzog's jarring crime drama Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans.
Shoot him again.
What fool?
The film features the actor as one of the Big Easy's most corrupt cops, Terrence McDonough. Terrence might have started out his career as a by-the-book police officer, but throughout the shocking events of the film, we watch him unwind into a spectacular disaster whose errant energy sends shockwaves throughout the city. He also deals with his own deteriorating grasp on reality. As the consequences of his bad behaviors bubble up and his grip on sanity continues to wane, Terrence chooses to lean into his warped views of justice, leading to one breathlessly messy action adventure and a truly riveting screen turn for Cage fans. The National Treasure series is electric from start to finish and is a definite must-watch for Nicolas Cage fans. In the first film, released in 2004, Cage's character Benjamin Franklin Gates decides he must steal the Declaration of Independence in order to protect it, and the treasure map on the back of it. Meanwhile, in the second pick from 2007, he has to kidnap the actual President of the United States in order to get his hands on another map that leads to a fabled City of Gold. In both films, Cage imbues the character with a true sense of honor, unstoppable charm, and a commitment to protecting the most precious pieces of the past, even if that means being completely reckless along the way.
Here's to the men who did what was considered wrong in order to do what they knew was right.
With centuries-old conspiracies and some larger-than-life set pieces, the National Treasure series is a wholesome double adventure for all ages. The star-studded 2000 smash hit film Gone in 60 Seconds has a whole lot of glorious roadway action. Cage stars in the film as Randall Memphis Raines, a retired car thief who has to quickly assemble a crew who can help him track down and steal 50 specific luxury cars in the space of just 3 days to save his brother's life. Together, the group puts pedal to the metal to organize a speedy series of heists to take place simultaneously across the city of Long Beach, California. What results is a smashing series of highway chases involving some of the snazziest cars that have ever been seen on screen. And Cage is, as always, at his best as a smooth-talking criminal who knows exactly what he wants.
I don't have one here. However, I do have one in the warehouse.
Superb. What else do you have in the warehouse?
Superhero movies may come in all shapes and sizes, but 2010's Kick-Ass is still one of a kind.
I didn't say anything to anyone, I swear.
Good move. Ass. Kick.
The film centers on a nerdy kid named Dave, who decides to try a superheroic alter ego on for size, because why not? The thing Dave doesn't know, though, is that he isn't the only person training to deliver some homegrown justice. Amid his roughshod crime-fighting adventures, Kick-Ass eventually meets Hit Girl and her vengeance-seeking father, Big Daddy, played by Cage. As Big Daddy, Cage is a real riot, parading around in a Batman-esque suit and coaching his daughter on how to destroy armies of goons all by herself. The role is darkly comedic and shows off Cage's sublime gift for blending action sequences with quirky anecdotes and some very off-the-wall character moments.
But it's really no more painful than a punch in the chest.
Why are you getting punched in the chest?
You're gonna be fine, baby doll.
Cage is particularly gifted at playing characters who have a lack of scruples and absolutely no regrets, and that's certainly the defining characteristic of his character in 2005's Lord of War. Cage stars in the pick as Yuri Orlov, a successful gun runner who delights in providing arms to some of the world's most dangerous individuals.
By the mid-'80s, my weapons were represented in 8 of the world's top 10 war zones.
Alongside his brother, Yuri becomes a major player in the 1982 Lebanon War and catches the attention of Interpol and, well, let's just say he finds himself in the middle of some very dangerous conflicts. As Yuri, Cage is a complete enigma, bringing both humor and horror to a story that's truly engaging and intelligent.
Can you bring me the gun of Rambo?
Part 1, 2, or 3.
Ridley Scott's 2003 black comedy Matchstick Men features Cage at the absolute top of his game. His character, Roy Waller, is at once a cavalier con artist and a desperately unraveling individual with a lonely home life. His ability to smooth talk unsuspecting marks and handing over their hard-earned money is impressively strong, but he's also hanging on by a thread when it comes to his own sanity and sense of purpose.
I know, but this is an emergency.
Hey, buddy, ever heard of a line?
Hey, have you ever been dragged to the sidewalk and beat until you pissed blood?
Things take a major turn for Roy when he's introduced to the teen daughter he didn't know he had, Angela, and decides to embrace his dad status and teach her all he knows about running a game.
You're ready for this.
I was born ready.
Glad I missed that day.
But as the stakes of his heist reach new heights and his mental health continues to waver, Roy has to worry about more than just his own financial interests for the first time in his life. Things eventually culminate into a gloriously chaotic climax with some dynamite twists that keep you guessing right until the end. 1987's Raising Arizona was one of Nicolas Cage's first major films, but it contains one of his all-time greatest comedic action performances. The movie, which helped bring the Coen brothers into the mainstream, features the stars Hy McDonough, a former convict who marries a police officer named Ed. After they decide they want to have children but are unable to bear or adopt any themselves, Hy and Ed decide to kidnap one of the quintuplet sons of a famous furniture magnate and raise him as their own. Though they initially try to raise him as Little Junior and pass him off as their own biological child, things get completely out of hand once the couple is reacquainted with some of Hy's former pals from prison, as well as other wildcard characters like Hy's offensive foreman and a monstrous biker from hell. From there, poor Junior becomes the unwitting centerpiece of some blackly hilarious and action-packed exchanges.
Son, you got a panty on your head. You drive fast, eh?
It's not often that a movie with intense fighting and a complicated game of cat and mouse can also be a meaningful meditation on grief, but that's exactly what Pig manages to pull off. The film features Cage as Rob, a man who lives completely off the grid in the forest alongside his prized pig. They spend their days hunting truffles, but when his talented pig is stolen amid a violent attack, he has to return to the city to face his mysterious past in order to save her.
I'm looking for a truffle pig.
I don't understand.
Though the film is dripping with dread and features some very satisfying moments of action, it's also refreshingly subversive and emotionally engaging. Anchoring it all is Cage's sensational and critically revered leading performance in The Pick, which proves that even as accomplished as he already is, he's still got many surprises up his sleeve. Nicolas Cage has always had some strong rock and roll energy, and the 2018 horror flick Mandy is a prime example of that. The psychedelic film features the actor as Red Miller, a reclusive logger who's content to spend his quiet life with his girlfriend Mandy. Their peace is completely shattered, however, when a terrifying hippie cult attacks a couple in their home with the help of some demonic bikers. In addition to being a gonzo revenge story, the film is a gory, scary sensory experience, with Cage's deliciously berserk performance bringing all the batty action home.
Welcome to The Rock.
The cast of 1996's The Rock is a veritable who's who of action movie all-stars from the era. Cage stars as FBI agent Dr. Stanley Godspeed, a lab tech who has to work alongside a group of Navy SEALs and a highly classified spy-turned-prisoner, played by Sean Connery, to infiltrate the notorious Alcatraz prison after it's taken over by a group of dangerous former Marines. Audiences are treated to a taut thrill ride packed with plenty of punches and, as is the custom in any good Cage movie, a lot of iconic moments. For a film that manages to incorporate all the trappings of a traditional action film, John Woo's Face Off is still an incredibly original thrill. Sure, you may have seen planes crash into hangars, high-speed boat chases, and mega shootouts on screen before, but chances are good that you've never seen these events unfold during a blood feud between two people wearing each other's faces. At least not until you check out this 1997 classic.
You know, I can eat a peach for hours.
The film features Cage and John Travolta playing dual roles, with Cage starting off as the ruthless criminal Castor Troy before his face is surgically switched with John Travolta's FBI agent Sean Archer. With their roles reversed and each man pretending to be the other around their family members and colleagues, the performances of Cage and Travolta are exquisitely nuanced and off-kilter.
Wow. We've got something in common.
They also both seem to be having the absolute time of their lives in these roles, which amplifies the rush factor as this memorable action ride brings the duo together for an epic, that's right, face-off. There are many roles that seem to have been specifically crafted for Nicolas Cage's unique screen talents, but 1997's Con Air truly hinges on his particular gifts. Here, he stars as Cameron Poe, a decorated combat veteran who's sent to prison after drunkenly killing a man who attacked his wife. While incarcerated, he ends up on board a prison transport plane with the country's most hardened criminals, who scheme to take over the plane and escape from custody. For Cage fans, this film has a little bit of everything that makes him such a Hollywood legend. The character is tough but vulnerable, serious but also self-aware, and he has some unforgettable one-liners that only he can deliver.
I said, put the bunny back in the box.
Put simply, when it comes to Nick Cage's most iconic action films, Con Air truly nails the landing. With all of these amazing performances under his belt, it's no wonder Cage manages to corral such intense fandemonium from the likes of Hobby and the unbearable weight of massive talent. A must-see theatrical experience you should catch with friends in all its action-packed glory this weekend. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.